Hello everybody, this is Carl Leopson, your instructor for SERP 503 Special Services in the Schools, and this is the Week 8 overview. In the past couple of weeks, we've looked at some of the really basic elements of an IEP. Right? We looked at the PLAFP, and we looked at IEP goals. Those are the real key elements. However, there's a lot to IEPs. There's a lot more that's built around those to make sure that things are done properly and that parents get due process and that things run smoothly and meet the requirements of federal law. So, this week, we're going to take a look at all of that. Let me show you what the objectives are this week. First, given a scenario, I want you to be able to describe for me the requirements for prior written notice, and we'll talk about what that is in just a moment. Also, given IEPs from various states or local education agencies, students will identify IEP elements that are common across forms. So I'll show and explain that one to you also. So one of the things I try to do for you every week is provide you with some resources that you can look to after you're done with this course. Every state Department of Education provides some level of resources in special education, and so this week I'm highlighting Arizona's resources for you that are related to this special education process and make sure that the process is done properly. So the state of Arizona takes responsibility for ensuring that the IEP process and the whole special education process runs as required. And so they provide technical assistance documents, and they come out and they will do audits of the process and of special education documentation to make sure that districts and charter schools are doing things the way that they ought to. So first of all, this isn't necessarily an Arizona document. This is kind of my favorite demonstration of a timeline for special education. It's kind of simpler to understand than many others. It demonstrates how many calendar days or school days there are between certain things that happen, such as, you see down below at the bottom, when there is final parental consent for evaluation, the school has 60 calendar days to complete the evaluation and meet. That's just a demonstration. There are lots of specifics to these timelines, and they're included in some of the other documents that I'm going to provide to you. Like this one, the Arizona IEP Manual for 2017. This is the most up-to-date one that I could find, but there are also older versions. But this one is a step-by-step and a description of each element of an IEP as it's required in Arizona. And at the end of this document is a nice set of paperwork to help you evaluate your own IEPs or IEPs that you were given out in the field. So what's at the end of that document is a set of materials that show what is considered best practice for each segment of the IEP that would be reviewed if an auditor came out to review IEPs. So for instance, this one shows what should be included in the PLAF for there to be compliance and then best practice or non-compliance. Another really important part of the IEP process is prior written notice. And this is something that I don't know how many programs actually cover this, but I do because it's really important part of due process. Prior written notice is a document that must be created and sent to the parent or guardian or student of age whenever the school or IEP team is initiating a change, wants to make a change, or makes a decision that will change the provision of services. And that happens often. So here is a document from the state of Arizona. It's a whole manual on when prior written notice is required and when it is not. It even has this handy chart that shows the circumstances under which prior written notice is required, and you'll notice that it's required during identification, evaluation, educational placement, provision of FAPE. It's extensive. It also has a document that shows the special education process itself, and it shows where inside of that set of processes the prior written notice is required to be included with paperwork. Right? So just a really important thing to keep in mind, no matter where you're working as a special education teacher or if you're a parent, that this prior written notice document is required. So aside from just providing you with some resources to have, I also provide you with a presentation. It's a bit longer than some of my other presentations. It's about 25 minutes long, but that's because I walk you through every single element of an IEP, every single part of the paperwork, and show you what it looks like, or in general what should go there and the purpose of it. Right? It's a really important set of information to have. So in quiz 8, I ask you to do two things after we walk through all of this information. One is to read a scenario and explain whether or not you're required to provide prior written notice and why. And I cover this in the presentation, and it's also in the written materials that I provide to you. And secondly, I think it's important that you be able to identify the elements of an IEP, right? So the same elements are in all IEPs, but they'll be different depending on what state or school district you work in, what computer program they decide to use to create IEPs, or whether they're still going with paper. Some states have outlawed the use of paper and they only use computer programs. So I provide you with one IEP template from Kentucky and another one from New Mexico. And what I ask you to do in the quiz is it will walk you through and ask you to match the page number in the Kentucky IEP to a certain section. So where's the PLAF? What page number in the Kentucky IEP? What page number has the PLAF in the New Mexico IEP? What I want you to do is be able to look at these, see how incredibly different they are, but that they generally include the same pieces. That will be true across all 50 states. Charters, districts, all IEPs have the same parts, but they're going to be put together differently, and it's just important for you to be able to search through and find the segments. So that's what we're doing this week. We are looking at the prior written notice document, which is not commonly covered in the kind of depth that I do, but I think it's really important. And secondly, taking a look at all of the elements of an IEP, the many elements of an IEP, and making sure that you can find them regardless of whatever paperwork you receive about a student or wherever you decide to do your work. As always, contact me if I can provide any assistance.